What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the High Tempo Fast Break. Today, we are joined once again by a familiar face just recently on the podcast. Christian Booher is back. What's going on?
Not a whole heck of a lot. I'm proud to be back. I'm proud to be leading the fast break. You can call me the point guard, if you will.
Nice.
That was a good one.
I'm going to oop it to Easton now for the slam.
Yeah, so we're back today. We figured we would bring Christian back on because obviously Lions free agency was pretty talked about and what happened this past week, so we figured we might as well get him back on to talk now, especially before the draft, because we still have like a month until the draft, so even longer than a month actually. So we figured we have time to talk about and absorb Lions free agency. I don't think too much more is going to go down until the draft, so we might as well talk about it. And we got March Madness to talk about, so it's a good time to do a podcast. We are here on Sunday morning recording this, so we're going to talk about the games today, but obviously by the time you're listening to this, they are over, so you'll be able to see if we picked right or wrong for all of these games. So I think before we even talk about Lions, let's talk about March Madness right now. We are in the second day of the round of 32 right now. Games tip off at noon, recording this right before then, so... I think we should go through all these games and pick who we think is going to win.
I like that a lot.
I like doing that. So let's get right into it. I mean, first of all, let's talk about the high tempo bracket group challenge that we're in right now.
I'd love to talk about it.
Talk your shit, dude.
Man, I got so much shit for picking Creighton, and they could still lose.
They played one game.
Yeah, they could lose this round. And I get that, but my bracket looks really nice right now. Really, really nice. I think my whole Elite Eight's still there. I'm only missing one team in my Sweet 16, I think.
Looks like you have the highest max too.
1770.
Yep.
I've been doing pretty good, but I still have some wild picks. FAU needs to they need to make it to the Elite Eight. I have them all the way there. I have some other weird ones, but Creighton still. I mean, Creighton could lose today, and then all of a sudden I look like an idiot.
Right.
I'm right back to looking like a loser. So I'm really dependent on that. But I'm so happy I didn't pick. I didn't pick Kansas. I didn't pick Purdue. I'm so happy I went with a little bit of a weirder team this year.
Right.
And even St. Mary's. What a pick. What a pick out of us.
For now.
Oh, what a pick.
They got a tough game today against UConn. I have UConn going deep in almost every single bracket except for the one that you and me did. So we'll see what happens there. Christian, you're looking in a solid 7th place right now in this group of 45 plus people. So there's nothing to be shy about there. You have a high max as well. I mean, you're in a good spot.
Yeah, no, I feel good about it.
Who'd you pick? Who's your champ?
UCLA.
Oh, yeah.
The fighting Mick Cronin's.
Yep.
My whole thing was I like to identify the 1 seeds that I think are going home early, and I nailed it with both of them. I had Purdue losing to FAU.
Me as well.
So, but Fairleigh Dickinson took care of that.
Yep.
And then I had Kansas losing to Arkansas, which I'm just now realizing, which I feel really awesome.
That's huge.
Nailed that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's huge.
So I feel really good about both of those. Obviously, I still have my whole final. Actually, no, I don't have my whole Final Four. I had Duke going to the Final Four.
That's tough.
I had them losing to Tennessee.
So that one's tough. Right. I'm back and forth. I have 2 brackets. So one of them I had Duke, one of them I had Marquette. Actually, I just checked, and the one I had in your guys' I had Marquette beating Duke. But also, I watched Michigan State play on, what is it, Friday?
Friday, yep.
That looks like a team that's going to make a run. Them boys look like they're going to make some noise.
I would agree.
And they're the most classic Michigan State team to make a run.
Yes.
They're the team that we know, like you said, nobody, this team isn't that great on paper. And even in the regular season, they weren't that great. But it was just this team's going to get hot. You can just kind of feel it. They've got some big-time players who step up in big-time moments. And I think of Tyson Walker as just that guy. When I talk about the guys who step up in big moments, it's Tyson Walker.
And he hasn't even been the guy that's been stepping up over these last several games. It's been Joey Hauser and Jaden Akins and AJ Holgard.
Akins Friday night. Holy shit, was he playing clamps.
Akins he's a great player on a team. He's a very underrated player on a team that if he was on another team, he would be much more talked about for sure.
Me and Barry Hill got into a debate the other day. And I'm not going to slander what Barry Hill is saying because he's not here to defend himself. But he said that Kobe Buffkin is definitely better than Jaden Akins. And I looked at him and I said...
I disagree.
I said definitely is crazy. I said, you can say better. I'm okay with that. And I do think there's definitely an argument for Akins to be better than Buffkin. But to say definitely, that was my issue with it was this choice of words.
Yeah.
You want to say better? Okay.
We've talked about this a lot, though, because Kobe Buffkin, I don't know if he's better, but he has a better role than Jaden Akins does.
That's what I said. And then defensively, I mean, Jaden Akins Kobe Buffkin's got the length. He's got a little bit he's not beefy the way Jaden Akins is.
Yeah.
Jaden Akins, you don't get to the hole ever on him. He is such a strong
and he's
body.
A great shooter as well.
So fast. I think, and that's where I was like, Berryhill, I think you're just I think you're seeing through the eyes of a Michigan fan right now, and not taking a step back. Jaden Akins, what a baller.
And also, Kobe Buffkin's team is eliminated from the NIT right now. And it's just
I don't want to talk about that.
Hey, he didn't play.
That's true.
But you mentioned Joey Hauser as well, and I think he's the X factor with that Michigan State team. I think Joey Hauser, ever since he transferred to Michigan State from Marquette, what was that, like 3-4 years ago now?
Yeah, he's in his third season. Yep.
He's had a role that everybody's envisioned him playing as like a stretch 4 shooter, and he hasn't. The expectations were set so high for him that he was never going to live up to those. And I feel like that was his first 2 years. And then this year, everybody kind of took a step back and they're like, Joey Hauser is going to be more of a leader. He's going to pour in his 10 to 12, and he's just going to give everybody else what they need. Now Joey Hauser is that guy.
Yeah.
He is the player everybody thought he was going to be when he got here. And for that reason, I think he makes Michigan State so much better now.
And he's had a lot of confidence issues,
Yes.
Tom Izzo talked about it openly, actually, with the press at the end of the season last year, and said when Joey Hauser was coming back, he said, I'm proud of Joey for coming back because he's had a lot of issues with fans and media with criticism of him, and he's not a very confident person. Whereas this year, it really seems like all that is gone. I mean, he really has every single game he comes out and he gets his shots, he knocks them. He really has not had many games this year where it's like, Joey, and there was a lot of games like that in the past couple years. It was like, oh, what are you doing? He's been the most consistent player, I think, for MSU this season. So he's got his revenge game today against Marquette, obviously. So we'll see. Obviously, it's really been quite some time since he's been at Marquette, so it's not that big of a revenge game for him. I'm looking at my bracket in the high tempo group right now. I have 7 out of my 8 Elite 8 still intact, with Duke being the one that's not in it. But my Final 4 is still all good, but MSU is in my Final 4. So it's just obviously I'm rooting for them, but you never know. Let's look at our bracket, Easton, the one that we filled out. If you did not listen, by the way, go check it out. We filled out a bracket in the last podcast. St. Mary's, we got them winning the whole entire thing. Risky pick, but hey, you got to make risky picks. Right now, 7 out of our 8 Elite 8 is also intact.
We're dogs.
We had Texas A&M in the Elite 8, which sucks because they went out round 1. But Houston obviously won last night, so they're going to be in it. UCLA is there as well. St. Mary's, we're going to need them to go on a run. But we have FAU versus Michigan State. That could happen. FAU has a pretty good path looking right now. Then Alabama versus Creighton, so we need Creighton to continue to go on their run. So we'll see what happens. But right now it's still wide open in this high tempo bracket group. So we'll give a quick shout out to some of the guys that are up at the top. My cousin Boo, he is in number 1 right now, but his only 2 out of his Final 4 remain, so it's not looking good for him. Easton in second, Berryhill tied with him for second, and then some other guys that I don't know, so I'm not gonna say them for now. All right, is that pretty much it? Are we good to talk about these games now?
Yeah.
Pick our winners for the games.
Let's run it.
Let's get it. So first game at 12:10 coming right up. We have 11-seeded Pitt taking on 3-seeded Xavier. Xavier is 5-point favorites. These are all done through Caesar Sportsbook, by the way. So who do we got? Xavier or Pitt?
Give me Xavier.
Yep, I like Xavier as well.
I took Xavier as a sleeper pick to go to the Final 4 in a lot of brackets, so I will also rock with Xavier. But Pitt, the play-in team has been kind of a trend these last couple years. So we're
going to see the other play-in team here in a couple of games.
That's true. You're right. All right, next at 2:40, we have 6-seeded Kentucky taking on 3-seeded Kansas State. However, the lower-seeded Wildcats. Wait, they're both Wildcats, actually. The lower-seeded Kentucky are the favorites to win. They're 3-point favorites over Kansas State.
When you look at the trends, normally when you get an upset pick like that, where the lower-ranked team is favored, the higher seed normally will blow them out. But I love what Calipari has done with his team the last however many weeks. I think that the problem you run into with all these one and dones is if you don't have like the Anthony Davises, the John Walls, it can go awry and it can go awry fast. But I think that Calipari's done a good job of righting the ship. So I like Kentucky here.
And I think I had Kansas State winning in my original bracket, and I'm gonna stay with that. I think Kansas State's a good team, and this is just one of those years where feels like Duke's already lost. Like feels like Kentucky's gonna be out of it, Kansas out of it. Feels like it's gonna be a whole like slate of new teams for the most part.
I love that though.
So that's where I'm gonna go with Kansas State. Give me the purple boys.
Yeah, I think I'm also gonna rock with Kansas State here, strictly for the thing that you were talking about, because this opened at actually Kentucky was only 1 point favorites, and now they're 3 point favorites. So money's obviously going on to Kentucky here. So it's tough. Like It's so hard with the lower seed being the favorite over the higher seed, so that's why I do think Kansas State will win this one. But this is going to be a good game. Winner of this game will take on winner of Michigan State versus Marquette in the Sweet 16. So this is a pretty important game. That's our next game. 7-seeded Michigan State taking on 2-seeded Marquette. Marquette are 3 point favorites in this one.
Give me Sparty. Go. I mean, today it's go green energy. I'm not a hater. I've never been that type of fan of Michigan. So today it's go green. I've totally taken Sparty today.
I love Michigan State right now. I think that I'm a Michigan fan too, but I just think that this is a prototypical Tom Izzo making something out of nothing. It's like you have the pieces there. You have your shooters. You have your ball dominant guards. You have your bigs. Sissoko has looked really good.
Yeah.
I think it was Ant Wright said he's onto the Sissoko.
Nice.
Giannis mixed with Matty Sissoko. Sorry it took me so long to say that, but
that's funny.
He looks really good. I think this is, and you give Tom Izzo the pieces, all he's got to do is put them together. I think this is a really good Michigan State team.
Yeah, I'm taking MSU, obviously. I'm an MSU fan, but it's not going to be easy. No. It's going to be a stressful game. I'm not, I want it to get here, but the second it starts, I'm going to want it to be over. But we got to make the Sweet 16. It's been a couple years since we've made the Final Four. We have not returned to the second weekend of the tournament, so Shaka Smart is not known to win these big games in the tournament ever since he went on that run with VCU years back. So I'm going to go with MSU, obviously, in this one.
Yeah, and shout out Tom Izzo for flexing a little muscle the other day, breaking that clipboard, not even over his knee.
No.
Are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. The whiteboard, I said clipboard, but he breaking it. He didn't even need the knee.
That's that old man strength.
Oh, yeah, that's Dad's strength.
Yeah, exactly.
Steven was watching. He's like, I got to show Steve.
He was pretty scared, yeah.
I got to show him what I'm about.
And that was also a Rocket Mortgage whiteboard.
Yeah,
Shout out Matt Ishbia and Dan Gilbert. Or no, yeah, I think Ishbia is United Wholesale Mortgage or whatever. Yeah. Dan Gilbert is Rocket Mortgage. Shout out Dan Gilbert. Snap that sucker right in half.
That is so funny.
Next game, 6-10. This is one of the toughest games to pick all day. 5-seeded St. Mary's taking on 4-seeded UConn. UConn is 4 point favorites in this one. These are two teams that I both want them to go deep, but it just can't happen.
I'm going St. Mary's strictly because there's just something about them. There's just the St. Mary's. I love it. I love their logo. I love everything.
The Gales.
And I don't really know much about UConn this year. I really don't. Give me St. Mary's.
UConn's got all the pieces to be a national championship team. They've got the Jordan Hawkins. They've got a bunch of big guys whose names I can't pronounce. But something has always felt like it's short with them. Something has always felt like it's coming up short with them. I don't see that changing here. Give me the Gales. Give me St. Mary's. I like them a lot.
I'm going to go with UConn strictly because I placed a futures bet on UConn to win the national championship 2 months ago. So I'm trying to get that cash out value up. I'm trying to get that up right now. So I'm going to go with UConn.
What is that? What is that? You don't got to tell me. What are the odds?
I put $3 on them to win it 2 months ago. They're plus 4,000 or something to win.
Gotcha.
The cash out right now is $450. So if they win this game, it's probably going to go up to maybe $20, 15 to 20.
That ain't bad. Are you thinking
maybe not that high? Probably $10, but
then
they're not going to win it all. There's no way they do. So
you wait for them to win one more game, then you cash out.
We'll see. It depends on who they got to play.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we have 6-seeded Creighton taking on 3-seeded Baylor. Another really tough one here. Neither team is favored here. It is a pick'em game. So what are we thinking here?
We know who I'm going with. Yep. I'll get mine right out of the way. I don't know why I've been so Creighton obsessed all of a sudden, but give me Creighton. I mean, it's all the way. Yeah. They're going to win it all.
I like Creighton. I'll take the what are they? The Blue Jays.
Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Blue Jays.
Shout out the Shepherd Blue Jays.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I'll take Creighton.
I will also take Creighton here. Baylor, this isn't their year. You know, they've had their time, they've had their year. This one just isn't their year. So give me Creighton. Next, we have the game that is most exciting here. We have 16 seeded. Yes, 16 seeded. Is it Fairleigh or Farley?
I don't know.
I've heard it said both ways. I don't.
It's Fairleigh.
That's what
I've
I
been
thought.
Rocking with.
Fairleigh Dickinson, the only Dickinson in the tournament this year, taking on.
The shit talker, dude.
No, I saw that on Twitter and I thought that was hilarious. Taking on 9-seeded FAU. FAU is heavily favored in this one at minus 15.5.
That's crazy.
That is wild.
How do we feel? Do we think that Farley Dickinson can take it another round here?
They got lucky that they ran into Purdue first round. Like, that was a lucky first round matchup.
It's the perfect
weird
draw.
thing to say.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be. I bet you, like, their coach, Tobin Anderson, he was 1,000% right. He knew. I mean, he said, I've been watching Purdue. They suck.
That's the best call your shot moment ever.
And remember, on all the tweets, De'Aaron Fox, this is going to be a historic blowout.
Yeah.
No, Tobin, anybody who was watching Purdue knew there was a shot that this was going to happen. Like you said, us three all had them losing in the second round to FAU. They didn't even make it to FAU.
Yeah.
They lost to a team who wasn't supposed to be in the tournament.
We all knew.
Us three knew Purdue was fraudulent. They pulled Zach Edey out, gave him the LA Clipper Rudy Gobert treatment, pulled him out, made him guard on the wing, and he got torched. And it was awesome. I mean, it was an incredible win, but I think their run is pretty much over. You couldn't get luckier than playing Purdue in the first round. And FAU's, and at that point, you can't have a letdown against a team that just beat a number one seed. Yeah. You're not going to be like, oh, who are these guys? These guys are easy. It's like, oh shit, they just beat Purdue.
Exactly.
So I don't think you have a letdown. I think FAU kills them today.
Yeah, I agree. I think FAU kills them as well. They probably honestly cover this minus 15.5, but Farley Dickinson, it was cool. You're never going to be mad about losing this second round game. No. You won as a 16 seed. Like, that was the greatest upset in tournament history for 1,000%. Sure. So I'm going FAU.
Yeah, I think that what it boils down to too, and you mentioned what Fairleigh Dickinson did on offense, but I want to talk a little bit about what they did on defense, which is they didn't have to do much because the only person on Purdue's roster that wanted to shoot the ball in the last 10 minutes of the game was the Lawyer kid.
Yeah.
If the ball wasn't in Lawyer's hands, it was like they were just trying to get it there. Mm-hmm. The Braden Smith, he will be a good player, but his freshman eligibility showed he turned the ball over 7 times, and then the Gillis dude had so many open looks and missed 1 or 2 of them, and then all of a sudden he didn't want to shoot the ball anymore. And anytime they could get the ball into Edey, somebody from Fairleigh Dickinson just took it away. And I think that, like you guys mentioned, Florida Atlantic's going to be a little more on guard. It's not going to hit. It's not going to go until the last 5 minutes for them to hit and be like, oh crap, we can lose. And I think that Florida Atlantic will have guards that are confident. They can play confident. They've got experienced guys in their backcourt. I think they win this game. That 15.5 line, you almost want to take it because you know that so many people are going to bet on Fairleigh Dickinson to cover it.
Exactly.
You almost want to take it because I could see that game getting ugly.
Oh, absolutely.
I honestly don't like any of these lines today. Like I like a lot of them yesterday. Like I was comfortable with today. I don't think I like any of them, dude. They're all so just like fishy. Like even this one is the most. Like I want to take FAU here, but what if these guys are still motivated? Like, what if they don't? They're not satisfied with just beating the 1 seed. They want to keep it going. Like the real question is how big of an upgrade or how big of a raise does this Fairleigh Dickinson's coach get? Like what level does he go to? Is he immediately into Power 5? Or are we talking like, right outside of the power? Like where's his next job? Where you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have no idea. What do you think?
Right down the road. Get him to Mount Pleasant. I'm being serious. I think that Tony Barbie's had 17 wins in 2 years. Like, you give him 1 more year, and if that Tobin Anderson dude is still available, go get him, because he was a winner at the Division II level. He just engineered the best upset in tournament history. Like, that dude's stock is going to go up. The price for that dude just went up.
Oh, he'll be gone next year.
Like, Andy's got awesome handles. He's got rip handles. Yeah, he was on the show. He started doing spider dribble. He was doing in and out. He was going crazy. But I agree. CMU's freshman of the year
just left.
transferred. He's gone.
See, I think CMU I think he is going much higher level than honestly
if
he
not
probably
though.
is.
If not,
he probably
But
is.
they are such a small school. But you even look like last year, like St. Peter's, their coach. He immediately went to Seton Hall. He did go to Seton Hall. He was a former player at Seton Hall, which obviously that has a lot to do with it. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, if they lose this game, it's a little bit. If they just get blown out in this game, I don't know what happens. But clearly, I think he's going to get a payday somewhere
for
else,
sure.
I would assume. Go ahead.
The only other thing I would add to that is that Florida Atlantic, the coaches, obviously the coaches who are responsible for the scouts, do we think anybody put a scouting report together for Fairleigh Dickinson?
No.
I doubt it. I think that they were so hands-on getting ready for Purdue. They're like, we got to get ready for the number 1 seed.
For sure.
Now you got a day. You got 48 hours
to prepare for the 16 seed that you've seen play.
And you got to try to actually prepare your guys and not just where they're like, oh, we get to 16 seed.
Yeah.
It's hard to get your guys to actually commit to taking it seriously, I guess, which they should. They're in the tournament. So last 2 games of the day, this is another really tough one. We have 5-seeded Miami taking on 4-seeded Indiana. The Hoosiers are 2-point favorites.
Hoosiers are 2-point favorites in this game. The Big Ten has showed me that I believe there is one good team in the entire Big Ten, and I don't mean even good team. I think there's one team that is poised for a tournament run, and I think that is Michigan State. I don't see Indiana winning even this game, and if they win this game, I don't see them moving on. Give me Miami in this game.
I had them going to the Final Four.
Respect.
I love the Hoosiers. I think that they have the unique blend that can take a team from the Big Ten over the top. I think that they have a pro in the backcourt, that Jalen Hood-Schifino, and they have a pro big, Trace Jackson Davis. So they really aren't ever overmatched.
And they have shooters as well.
And they have shooters, guys like Miller Kopp. And what you run into too many times with these Big Ten teams is you've got a team with a really good big, the Caleb Swanigan, Travion Williams, even Hunter Dickinson teams come to mind where they don't have it in the backcourt to compete with teams with good guards. Or the other way around, where you've got really good guards and no bigs. And I think Indiana's got just the right amount of that. And then their draw is decent as well, like Miami. And then I think they're with Houston. They would play Houston if Houston wins.
Yep.
So that would be, I think they got the ideal draw to where, and then you get to the next round, maybe they outscore Houston. Houston isn't really a scoring threat as much. So I love the Hoosiers here, and I like the Hoosiers as well moving forward.
I think I'm picking the Hoosiers as well. I like rooting for the Big Ten because, we've been made fun of in the tournament the last so many years, and we need to turn that around. Obviously, with our number 1 seed getting knocked off in the first round, that doesn't help things at all. So we need as many teams as possible to keep going here. A lot of people are shitting on the Big Ten, too, for, Northwestern losing yesterday. And what was the other team that lost yesterday in the Big Ten? Maryland. Yeah, it's those teams were never going to win that game. Right. They made it to the second round. That was their ceiling. They were never going to win that game. So you can't get mad at those teams. But a team like Indiana, they got to win this game to get some respect for the Big Ten. Obviously, MSU's got to win this game as well. So I'm taking Indiana to beat Miami in this one.
I guess I'm kind of just pissed off at the Big Ten. Just angry.
It's annoying.
I've got this, I don't know what it's like a revenge or a vengeful feeling.
Oh, yeah.
About the entire Big Ten.
I hate the Big Ten.
I'm so mad at the whole Big Ten right now.
I'm mad at the tournament committee for letting this many Big Ten teams in the tournament.
Stop doing it. It just makes us look so bad.
I listened to the Mark Titus show. It's my second favorite podcast after this one. And he was talking about how games in the Big Ten are officiated differently. And then they don't call as many fouls on the big guys. And so then when you get into the tournament play and it's different officials who are calling fouls on the big guys, setting the tone, they're calling more hand checks, things like that. The physical play, you can't bully a team like that, like a lot of Purdue was able to do, or what Rutgers used to do. And what makes the Big Ten so interesting night in, night out is who's tougher tonight wins the game.
For sure.
That doesn't happen in the Big Ten.
No. So. That's I do like Titus' show too as well because he is a Big Ten guy, obviously. So it's nice to hear because a lot of these shows just talk about the SEC and the Big 12, which makes sense because those are great conferences. But it's cool to see insight from him as well. Last game of the day, we have 6-seeded TCU taking on the 3-seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are 4.5-point favorites here. This is the late game.
Probably Zags. Give me Drew Timme. See what he does. Probably, give me the Zags.
I like Gonzaga just because it feels like nobody likes Gonzaga right now.
Yeah.
It feels like every year we've been getting our hopes up. This is the Gonzaga team that's going to do it. This is the Gonzaga team that's going to do it. And they always flame out. And while I don't think this is the team that gets to a Final Four, I think that this is a team who can certainly contend to get there. I think they win today. I think that they probably win in the Sweet 16 as well. And then moving forward, who knows? But.
And they're in the Kansas region, right? So I believe that they are in the same region as Kansas was, correct?
Yeah.
So that obviously is that's huge for them. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Gonzaga as well. We talked about that same thing. Like Gonzaga has been this hyped up team every year, and they end up not making it. Maybe, they made the championship obviously a couple years ago, but maybe this is the year that they decide to go on a run when they're a little less talked about.
Yeah,
so I will also pick Gonzaga. All right, that's it for college basketball talk. Sorry if you're only here to talk about the Lions, because we are finally to it. Let's get into it. So I think the first thing we are going to do is go through obviously all of the Lions signings and re-signings that they have made so far in this free agency, and we can give them a grade. What do we think about all of these the things that the Lions have done so far? So the first thing the Lions did, a lot of these are going to be really quick because they are not crucially important. But the first one was a fan favorite signing, re-signing Isaiah Buggs, 2-year contract worth $6 million. What are we thinking about the re-signing of Isaiah Buggs?
If we're grading picks, that's an A+.
Yes.
Or grading re-signings, what a move. Obviously, being the fan favorite really helps the look, but money move.
Yep. I'll give it an A as well.
I like it a lot. I think that while it doesn't address the whole defensive line, I think that having him back on the interior is huge. And committing to a guy who is very obviously committed to being in Detroit with 2 years, give him some stability. Love the move. Love it.
Me too. This one's going to be really fast. Craig Reynolds brought back on a 1-year deal for $1.1 million.
A+.
Cool.
Yeah, fair enough.
Awesome.
We could always use another guy back there, hard worker.
And he's a dog.
I
he
love
is an
Craig
absolute dog.
Exactly. The contracts of both of our young tight ends, Brock Wright and Shane Zylstra, both were tendered, so they will be back on the team next year. Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Sick.
Let's keep
Awesome.
running it.
I honestly think that they may end up drafting a tight end, which might get me booed out of here, but I think that those guys will compete for spots next year. But if you have the opportunity to get better at the position, you should.
Yeah, I saw a mock draft recently that had us taking a tight end in the fourth round of the draft, and looking there, which I wouldn't mind at this point.
Darnell Washington. Give me Darnell Washington.
He's a prospect, that's for sure.
Darnell Washington.
All right, now we get into the actual meat of the signings here. I'm skipping Matt Nelson. Sorry, Matt Nelson. Welcome back to the team.
Yeah.
John Kaminsky brought back for a 2-year, $9.5 million contract. The commish is back in Detroit after wanting to come back to Detroit.
Good move. It's just one of those moves that we had to make, and I think it was clear that he was probably going to come back, and here he is back on the lines.
Yeah, he gets a payday too.
Glad that we made this move as well. I think that Kaminsky, like Buggs, is a guy who's committed to being in Detroit, and I think that you should try to get all those guys back that you could, and obviously you don't have to break the bank to do it, so that's the best part.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. When you're getting those role player type guys, athlete type guys, if they want to be here and you can sign them for cheap, that's better than sometimes maybe going out and getting a more talented guy who doesn't want to be here and is just chasing a bag. That's the way I feel about that.
And Kaminsky kind of broke out at the end of the year last year, so maybe you give him a full year with this unit. Maybe he really becomes a elite player at his position. Who knows? Next, we have one that, up to this point, these have all been fan favorite moves. We love them. This one is a little more controversial. Alex Anzalone brought back on a 3-year, $18.75 million contract. I've been trying to read the details of this contract, and Christian, maybe you know a little bit more about it than I do. I'm kind of reading that there's zero money of this is guaranteed money, which I'm trying to figure that out. I've been really trying to read into it, but I think this is a very team-friendly contract than most fans think.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't have the details on me right now, and I don't want to speak if I don't know all of the details. But no, I do believe it's very low guarantees.
Yeah.
I think that what it is I think he wanted some stability in terms of he had just played the last 2 years both on 1-year deals. So he wanted a longer deal. Detroit didn't want to give him all this guaranteed money, and essentially it's just a longer prove-it deal.
Gotcha.
To where the Lions aren't tied to this if he doesn't play well. They aren't super tied to this for the long term. And I honestly, at first I was like, we need to go upgrade, but I was never opposed to him coming back.
No,
I think that he had his best year of his career last year with the Lions, and I think that he, as a leader, is everything they want for their defense. Now it's just about, can you get him to the next level where he is in the conversation for like a top half of the league in terms of linebackers. So I like the move. I like what the move says. And him having stability, the Lions getting a culture guy back who can also play, like both Buggs and Kaminsky were as well. So I think it's a good move. This is like the one area where I wish we would have went big just because there were so many good linebackers out there. But I, by no means, dislike the move. I think it's a pretty good one. It keeps the defense, the core of the defense intact. You don't got to teach a new guy the whole scheme. And he's a leader, so super helpful.
With a non-guaranteed contract like that, is a lot of it based off of snaps played, tackles?
There's incentives attached to it, yeah. So whatever they worked out can be snaps, can be tackles. It could get a bonus for like interceptions. Gotcha. It could just be being. I believe everybody gets this, but it could just be being on the roster by a certain day.
Oh, okay.
It guarantees you a certain amount of money. So
gotcha.
A way I've always tried to relate it to, because I think that NBA contract situation is a lot simpler than the NFL, because the NFL has a lot of weird, like the whole restructure thing in the NFL it's such a weird thing to me. Something that I've always thought of is like when you have like we're going to talk about it, like the Cam Sutton deal where it's like a $33 million contract, but $22 million is guaranteed. I look at it as in the eyes of this is a 2-year contract plus a team option, essentially. You know, that's how I like to look at it, because I feel like the NBA contracts are much simpler.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. And my other question, this is unrelated. Zeke goes out. He has how many years left on his deal or whatever, and he just gets cut.
Yeah.
So do the Dallas Cowboys got to pay that money still?
What'll happen is they designated him as a post-June 1st release. So essentially that means that he probably had a roster bonus set in place for like June 3rd.
Slay was the same way.
So they would cut him right before he's about to get that roster bonus, and then that would take away some of the money that they would owe him.
But they're still going to owe him some money.
They'll still have to pay him something, and they may agree to something.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the NFL contract situation
it's very
is
weird, because a lot of times it's cheaper to just cut a guy than try to trade a guy to another team. Or like if you're another team, it makes no sense for you to trade for him because you have to take on that contract. But it saves a lot of teams money when you cut them. It's a whole situation. It's really weird. So yeah, let's get into the next one though. Or actually, I do want to ask you this, Christian.
Yep.
A guy that we talked about on the last episode was Tremaine Edmonds, was the guy that we really liked. But we go see Tremaine Edmonds get the absolute bag from the Chicago Bears. 4 years, $72 million. I'm pretty sure it was $50-something million guaranteed. It might have been 50 on the dot. Is that something that we are now happy that we didn't do? Obviously, he's in the division, so it sucks. But what's your opinion on the deal, I guess?
Yeah, no, I think it fits with what the Bears are trying to do because they had so much dang cap space that they wanted to go crazy and spend all that money. But while I think Edmonds is a very good player, I also don't hate the idea of not shelling out money like that this offseason. Coming into it, you want them to spend because you can see it, right? Like as soon as the season ends and you beat Green Bay, you're like, I want to get every good free agent. I want to do this, this. But at the same time, you can tell that Brad Holmes and his staff are very calculated and very measured with the money that they're spending. And we'll get into this with Jamal Williams. But they have a price tag on everybody. They tier out players during the offseason where they're going, okay, this group of players we're willing to pay X amount of money for. This amount of player or this group of players we want to pay this amount. And if Edmonds wasn't a guy who they had in that tier, then I mean, you can't really doubt his process because it has worked. So while it would have been nice to see him in a Lions uniform, I think that at the same time, you take a look at what some of these other teams, and like if you sign a guy to a 4-year contract and he plays out the length of that 4-year contract to what you're paying him to be, that's a massive win. But this could also very realistically be Edmonds has a good year, good 2 years, and then by year 3 he's on the trade market again. Like I just think that is. It's good to not get committed into deals like that, especially when your window is just opening.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the way I feel too.
Yeah.
We're not one player away. We're not Tremaine Edmonds away. We're already there anyways. You know, we're Super Bowl contenders right now without him. So do we need to overpay him? Probably not.
That's interesting.
Not that he's not actually overpaid. I don't believe that.
Oh, I think he's overpaid. I just don't think we're Super Bowl contenders.
Who picked us last year as Super Bowl contenders? Right at the end of the year. Somebody on TV picked us as Super Bowl contenders. And it wasn't like a Lions fan, but it was hype.
Yeah, I think that, the Tremaine Edmonds signing, the Bears they're obviously, being aggressive this offseason with trading the first overall pick and everything. But I also still think it's silly that you traded Roquan Smith for a second-round pick and then traded a better second-round pick for Chase Claypool and then gave Tremaine Edmonds basically just a little bit less than what you were going to give Roquan Smith, who is a much more talented football player at the same position. So that was just, I don't know. The Bears, they're getting a lot of hype for what they're doing. Yeah. I don't really see it as much as everyone else, but it could just be because I'm a Lions fan as well. All right, let's get into this contract. Obviously, this is a good one, a fun one for the Lions. The first signing of another player onto our team, Lions signed former Steelers cornerback Cameron Sutton to a 3-year, $33 million contract with $22 million guaranteed. What are we thinking about the Cam Sutton acquisition?
I mean, I absolutely love it. We wanted to go get a veteran corner, an older corner who was a leader. He's coming from a great organization in Pittsburgh, as much as that pains me to say.
I was going to say, that's the first time I've heard that.
He comes from there, and he's in Detroit. He likes Detroit. He wants to be in Detroit. He's interviewing great. Again, that veteran corner is what we were lacking. And just to add, and he's not the only corner we added. We beefed up that whole backfield. And I love Cam Sutton. I'm really excited to see what he does in the Lions uniform.
Yeah, he is so versatile too. He plays on the outside, but can also play the slot corner position. And because of that, he's going to be able to do whatever Detroit needs him to do.
I think he's excited for that role.
I do too.
To be the guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He wasn't a starter in Pittsburgh until 2 years ago. So he played 4 years as like a special teams and reserve guy, and then played 2 years, and now he's got his bag. It's like, why? How can that not motivate you to want to be more, to get into that all-pro range, right?
Yeah, right.
So I think that one is probably the best signing that they've had so far.
I would agree.
Yeah, and Nate, roommate Nate, he's a Steelers fan, so obviously we've been talking to him a lot about the acquisition, and he likes Cam Sutton. He thinks that we might have overpaid a little bit for him because the Steelers didn't want to pay him that, but that's coming from a Steelers fan. So what do they really?
What
know?
do they know? They wanted Juju back. Like they love Juju Smith-Schuster. So
another cornerback signing, Emmanuel Mosley, comes in on a 1-year, $6 million contract. This seems like a steal of a deal for a guy that was CB1 in San Francisco on elite defense last year before tearing his ACL at the midway point in the season last year. Comes in, he was college teammates with Cam Sutton at Tennessee, so those guys already have a connection. And he comes in to probably be starting cornerback for us. So what do we think about Emmanuel Mosley on the team?
Yeah, I think that health is obviously of biggest importance here. He tore his ACL in October?
I believe so. I think it was like week 5, yeah.
So there'll probably be a little bit of time. But if he's ready for training camp, then by all means, it's full steam ahead. I think that he's a pretty good player. He had a 50-yard pick six last year. He was having the best season of his career, and then he got hurt, unfortunately. So I think this might be a good buy low for Detroit. Brad Holmes does it again, right? So I think that this move is the biggest boom or bust potential, I feel like, where he could either be really, really good, or he could never get over the injuries and maybe he just kind of breaks down. So I think he's a 1-year deal too, correct?
1 year. Yeah,
I think that's perfect.
Low risk, high reward
exactly,
type deal.
Exactly.
Love those kind of deals.
That's the way I feel. Can't go wrong with that 1-year deal. I mean, if he doesn't perform, awesome. He's gone. I mean, it's okay. He's gone next year. If he does perform, we can look at re-signing him. And $6 million is just not a lot for this Lions team, especially. Where else are we going to dish out that cap space?
Right. And, I think I'd like to get your opinion on this, but if, let's say, Mosley comes into training camp healthy, and, we brought back Will Harris as well, so what do we think that these two guys are, starting outside corners to start off the year? Is Jeff Okudah hitting a more inside role? I know that's been talked about, putting him in the slot or playing him inside more. Obviously, Jerry Jacobs is still a part of the team, too, so what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that is a very realistic possibility. I think that you've kind of narrowed it down to 4 there with Sutton, Mosley, Jacobs, and Okuda, and I think that's probably the way it goes. I don't see Mike Hughes coming back, and I certainly don't see Amani Oruwariye coming back. I think that the mutual split between the Lions and Oruwariye is good because I think there's still a good player there. I just don't think Detroit is not. I don't think it's the answer for him. But yeah, no, I think it's very realistic that we could be looking at regular season opener with Sutton on one end and Mosley on the other. I think best case scenario for the Lions in their eyes, you got Okuda out there either on the outside and you slide Sutton into the slot or Mosley into the slot, or he's in the slot. Yeah. I think that they still want Okuda to pan out, but I think the Mosley signing especially is more of an insurance plan where if Okuda doesn't work out, then we have an insurance plan. And also, I don't think you count out drafting a corner either.
No,
I think it can certainly happen. I think it could happen at 6. But why you bring in both of these guys is so that you don't have another Okuda situation where you're forcing a rookie corner to go out play every snap against the league's best right away.
Man coverage the entire time, too. No help over the top. Yep. One thing that I love about all these the 2 cornerback acquisitions is we were hurt last year at the cornerback spot. It's going to be nice to be able to, somebody goes down. Well, all we're doing is pulling Jerry Jacobs into the lineup, and I'm cool with that. Yeah, he's not, he hasn't really proved that much yet, but he was good last year. So I think just having that depth at the corner position with how banged up we were last year is going to be super, super nice this year.
Yeah, I think so too. And we're obviously going to talk about the draft, what we're going to do with the draft. But next signing here is the biggest one of them all as far as controversy goes. I think let's wait to talk about, the other side of this with Jamal Williams, obviously. But let's talk about just the player and the signing that the Lions did here. David Montgomery on a 3-year, $18 million contract with $11 million guaranteed. What do we think about bringing Monty, keeping him in the North, and he's now a part of the Lions?
Chris, I want to hear your opinion first on this because I've got my opinion now. I haven't heard yours
It's hard to talk about one without the other.
It is. I mean, we can talk about it, but I say we'll get more in depth about Jamal afterwards.
Because as soon as that domino fell, it was almost simultaneous, right? The reports come out Tuesday night. The Lions and Jamal Williams are far apart on a contract. And then minutes later, David Montgomery is a Detroit Lion. I love it. I think that that's the right move given the situation they were put in. Their back was kind of against the wall. You don't want DeAndre Swift to be the only guy because Swift is very good as a supplementary, get him in space and going. Not going to be a guy that gets 25 to 30 carries.
You don't want him to be that with his injury history.
Yeah. So getting a guy who can be a bell cow back and David Montgomery with a little more versatility as well. He was a threat in the passing game, a little more elusive. I think that it is perfect. And this is one of those situations where you want it to be a win-win for both sides. You want Jamal Williams to go have a really good year with the Saints, but at the same time, you need David Montgomery to be better than Williams was last year, right? So,
which is tough.
It is going to be tough, but with the offensive line, it's easy to envision Montgomery, who ran for 800 yards last year behind what the Bears called an offensive line. Now you get into an offensive line with borderline 3 dudes who could be all pros in Ragnow, Decker, Sewell. You bring in Glasgow, who we'll talk about. I think he's going to be a stud in this new situation. I think it's a win-win.
And he's with the most one of the best OCs in the whole NFL now with Ben Johnson. I'm so excited. And like you said, the versatility of David Montgomery is higher than Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams was that power back, and he was great at it, incredible at it even. But David Montgomery's ability to actually catch the football in an offense led by Ben Johnson is going to be huge because he just becomes so much more lethal within the system. And that's what I like so much about David Montgomery. And he still is that powerful back. He still is that guy who can get all those carries, like you said. And he's probably just straight up better than Jamal Williams.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's a problem either. Like, he just is. Yeah. And I mean, and it's just tough because, like, I think it's hard to envision a world where David Montgomery does not have a better year than Jamal Williams did last year.
Yeah.
Not 17 touchdowns, that's a little different. But, like, if we're being realistic, Jamal Williams had the perfect season for him last year. With DeAndre Swift being hurt a lot of the year. it seemed like the Lions were really trying to help him break that record that he did end up breaking. He was obviously the goal line back. But one thing that Ben Johnson talked about last year was the one thing he thought this offense was missing was breaking tackles.
Yes.
He thought broken tackles was the big piece that would have unleashed this offense even more. You have a guy in David Montgomery who's been top 5 in broken tackles since he's come into the NFL. So he is going to be perfect on this team. It's really hard to envision him not rushing for 1,200 yards next year. It's just he is all around a better running back than Jamal Williams was. Obviously, he might not have the same locker room presence that Jamal did, which hurts, because Jamal was a fan favorite. Everybody loved him. But I think it's refreshing as a Lions fan to have a GM that is not making signings with his heart. He's making signings with the stats and the film and whatever makes this team better, because that's what Detroit needs. We, as much as it's fun to have the guys that we love, we need to be a better football team. I think this makes our football team better.
1,000%.
It's awesome seeing him as well. And again, another guy who interviews incredibly well. He's totally
funny too.
Yeah, he is bought in right from the start. He said, if Jared Goff needs water, I'm getting him water. And that's the kind of guy we need in Detroit. And I love it because we that was the fear when we lost Jamal, was like you said, the locker room presence, the actual person that Jamal really was. So it's nice to see David Montgomery's going to come in and almost seem like he's trying to recoup some of that and be similar, just be that team-oriented guy, which is just so awesome.
Plus, every time I've always see those funny question Q&A videos with all the NFL teams. Every time I see the Bears ones, Montgomery's always doing some funny shit in all of them. So he seems like a pretty funny dude. So it seems like he'll fit in pretty well with this team. So I'm excited about Montgomery. I think the duo of him and Swift is just going to be lethal. So I'm really excited for that. Last couple signings here. Mainly, this is the only big one. Like you said, Graham Glasgow returning to Detroit on a 1-year, $4.5 million contract. I think this is very similar to Emmanuel Mosley one, where it's just a low risk, high reward type of deal to bring him in.
I think that while this one isn't the biggest, I think this one could be the most important because if you shore up that offensive line. With last year when Vaitai went out, you had a revolving door of guys, Coyote Awasika, Evan Brown, Skipper. I mean, you could just go through all them guys, Stenberg, and none of them were really that good. I think Evan Brown was the best, and he got paid by Seattle, so good for him. But at the same time, if you can get some stability in there, and even if if you bring back Vaitai and he's got to shift to left guard because Jonah Jackson dealt with injuries last year too, but there's a place for him, and that if you get that spot, if you get that one spot shored up, this Lions offensive line is one of the best in the league, no doubt.
Yeah. I think so too, and Glasgow's a guy who's versatile. He started off his career with the Lions as a center. Obviously he's a Michigan guy, but if Ragnow gets hurt, he can move over. We have options there at the guard. I think this does, is Vaitai going to get cut? That's something that I thought that this signing would, almost ensure that, but it hasn't happened yet. And it would, I'm pretty sure it would say it was $5 million or something like that if he got cut. I thought that's what I saw. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but.
I think it's right around 9, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
His contract is 9.3, I think. And so I think by a certain date, they would save 5 or 6, but maybe later in the offseason it goes up. I'm not sure. The contract stuff again is so confusing because you see it in one spot and it's this, and then you go to Sport Track and it's a different number. So it's hard to keep up with the Joneses on that. But no, I think the more likely option is Vaitai makes it through to training camp and then you make a decision.
Yeah.
Get him healthy and then figure it out. But at the same time, the clock is ticking. And if you want to draft a guy too, then you have to make a decision. And you brought in Glasgow, so you might have already made that decision.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking with it, too. I just realized, too, we haven't been, grading any of these, but, who cares? I'd give them all an A+.
Me too. Yeah. I'm literally thinking, and it would be repetitive and redundant.
Yeah, exactly.
That's boring.
That's what I thought. The last major one here, there's obviously a couple ones, C.J. Moore got brought back, which is cool. Michael Badgley, though, is back as the kicker for the Lions on a 1-year deal. Does this kill the Jake Moody to Detroit
I don't think so.
hype?
I don't think so. I think that there's a very good chance, and it may not be Moody, it might be somebody else, but they're going to bring in a kicker, and they will have, they were doing, felt like all season long, you'll have Badgley, and you'll have whatever kicker of the week, and you'll have a kicking competition, and whoever makes more field goals will be the kicker. And part of that is because the kickers, there's been so much. It doesn't feel like we've ever had this much kicker fluctuation where dudes are getting cut after like week 1 and week 4. It kind of felt like when we were younger that each team had their kicker for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Everybody had the same kicker.
That's very true.
And now it's very up and down. And also, Dan Campbell just doesn't like kicking field goals.
He hates it.
He doesn't want to pick.
Yeah.
Remember their first year, he cut both the kickers?
Yeah, right away.
Yeah,
very first thing he did.
Yeah, the roster cut deadline, it was like, Lions are at 54. Who's it going to be? And they cut both of them.
They got rid of both kickers, which is just wild.
Yeah, so, I mean, Badgley gives you some stability at the very least. So if you bring in a guy in the offseason and you don't like him, then you can just stick with that.
Does a guy like Jake Moody just go in the 7th round, or is there a chance?
I feel like he's gonna get. I feel like he might go in like the 5th round.
He might go early day 3.
Yeah, like that'd be awesome. Honestly,
I want him so bad in a Lions jersey.
Yeah.
And then like
I might buy it.
And let's sign him to the 15-year deal. Like let's
give him the Jason Hansen.
Yeah, I want
15 years, $15.
I want a long deal for this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would like that as well. I think Badgley did like earn his spot. I mean, he was pretty solid once he came back to Detroit. Wasn't much of the deep field goal kicker guy. He was just I'm going to hit a 40-yarder consistently.
That dude will hit. You get in between the 25s.
Exactly.
Get into the 25 and it's 4th and 7 and you physically can't go for it, then you got to kick it.
He'll probably hit it. Yeah, exactly. He'll hit the extra point. That's about all you ask for. I guess we'll be cool with it.
I think to satisfy the fans, since you got rid of Jamal, you got to bring in Moody.
Yeah,
just satisfy the fans.
Right, that's true.
Do one of the two.
What time are we at in this, by the way?
50.
Okay.
50 minutes.
So before we talk about the draft, I think we should talk about who we've lost in free agency and what this means. Obviously, Jamal Williams is the big one, but the first one I thought was pretty interesting was the Deshaun Elliott to Miami. 1 year, like $1.1 million, I think. It was a very, very small contract.
That's crazy.
And he now joins an elite defensive backfield in Miami after they got Jalen Ramsey as well. So what do we think about losing Deshaun Elliott to the Dolphins?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that you lose a hard hitter coming up from that safety position who can just go, lay the wood.
Run stopper.
But at the same time, he played one full season in now 5 years because he didn't play a full season last year and he only played one in 4 years with the Ravens. So I think that it's tough to justify paying him money and giving him a longer-term contract when he hasn't proven he could stay healthy. And I think they're going to run into that with Swift after this year. But at the same time, I don't hate it because I'm looking at my hypothetical draft board and I'm staring right at Brian Branch from Alabama. And I love that dude. And I think that he's a perfect replacement. Give me Brian Branch, and then all of a sudden we'll forget about Elliott.
And we have Tracy Walker coming back.
And we have
still
Walker coming back, yes.
Yeah, Walker's a dog. Absolutely. He's one of the coolest looking guys on the field at all times. He is such a cool looking guy.
And like obviously I wanted to bring back Deshaun Elliott, but if you did bring him back, you struggle to find a world where Kirby Joseph has as big of a role as he did in his rookie season where he was pretty solid, so but you also don't want to put too much pressure on him where he could have a Oruwariye type situation where he was really good early on and then kind of doesn't live up to these high expectations that are set of him now. So we'll see. I obviously would have loved to bring back Elliott, but it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Let's talk about Jamal Williams, though. Jamal Williams signs a 3-year, $12 million contract with the New Orleans Saints, $8 million guaranteed, so only $3 less million guaranteed than David Montgomery. This has been a really weird situation because, like you said, the Lions, every report I've heard is that the Lions gave Jamal Williams and his team a deadline to come to an agreement with a deal that they've given him or offered him. They did not meet that deadline. Jamal Williams goes into the press conference with the New Orleans Saints and says the offer that the Lions gave was disrespectful, and he knew that they were done with him, which hurts because how much he cared about the Lions and everything. And then I've also heard that the Lions offered him a similar contract that they gave David Montgomery. So it's all over the place here. What are we thinking about losing Jamal Williams?
Yeah, I think that give it a week, and I think that the more credible things will start to come out. I feel like things are just being thrown around right now.
I agree.
But my whole take on that is that Jamal Williams, as a running back, like you get to what is he now, 28? You get to that level and your value starts to decrease.
Yep.
Because over time, running backs who take a lot of hits get hurt. And Jamal Williams had never been used at the volume he was used last year. He had a career year. Is that repeatable? Because it's not for everybody. Not everybody can go out and repeat what he did last year. And if he does it with the Saints, good for him, man. But he took less money to go be with a different team. and which makes me think that maybe the Lions didn't offer him the 6 years or the $6 million they offered to Montgomery. But at the same time, like, it's hard to justify bringing him back because you love the guy, you love the person, and you love the player. But at the same time, statistically, like, he's broke through. He's on the downturn now, and so you don't want to really commit to that for long term. So when you make, and Kyle, I think you said it earlier, you want a GM who makes a decision with their head, not their heart. And I think that's the biggest example that we've seen so far out of Brad Holmes, and I don't hate it. I don't hate it. And good luck to him with the Saints, but at the same time, man, him going in there and going in on the Lions like that was tough to watch. It was hard to see him doing his thing with the Pokemon on his head. I miss it already, but and hopefully he does well in New Orleans, and they might need him with all the Alvin Kamara stuff going on.
Yeah, exactly. Easton, what do you think? I know that you were very heartbroken the moment David Montgomery was brought in. I know that you've probably changed your mind a little bit, but what's your whole thought on this situation?
I'm a guy who loves the person more than the athlete a lot of the times with athletes, depending on who you are and who you present yourself as. I was a huge John Morant fan until his antics before this season, and even like I quit being a fan before any of like the recent stuff came out. But like, so Jamal was the guy, his attitude was great. I listened to the pump up speech before I go and weight lift. I listen to his, if you're going to piss like a puppy, stay on the porch. Like, and that just kind of gets you going. But you're right. It was, and days later, I'm sitting there and I'm going, yeah, everybody's right. I mean, David Montgomery's a better running back, and we got him for 3 years on a I think it's a steal of a deal. I mean, $6 million a year for what that guy can give us.
Only 11 guaranteed as well. Yeah.
It's just so money, and again, his versatility, and that's where. But to see Jamal say that about the Lions, say what he said about Lions, it does really, really hurt. But he kind of did the same thing with the Packers. I mean, he didn't really talk highly of the Packers when he left the Packers, and so maybe that was to be expected from Jamal. Maybe a little bit of character showing through, or the Lions treated him like shit in this offseason.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what comes out. Not excited. I'm interested to see what comes out in the next few weeks, but it hurt instantly when David Montgomery got signed. But after the time has passed, I'm okay, and I am intrigued to see what Jamal does in New Orleans. I think he'll be solid still.
Yeah. I think the main reason why it stung so bad was because I thought it really felt like it's such a guarantee that Jamal Williams was going to be back on this team. He went on First Take with Stephen A. Smith and talked about how the Lions are taking the North next year. And it really felt like he was already on the Lions. It didn't think like it was a possibility that we lose him. I honestly thought that it was higher chance that Jamal's on this team next year than Swift was.
I agree with that.
And so, when this all happened, it was like really shocking, and it was like, what's going on? And I think, like you said, now that it's been a week or so since it's happened, I think most Lions fans have come to terms that this is the smarter move to make than bringing Jamal back. Obviously, if we would have just lost Jamal and not gotten anyone, it would have been like, what's going on here? But it's clear that I think Brad Holmes showed that he is not messing around. It's like they wanted to upgrade, and if they wanted to bring him back. If not, we are going to upgrade. That's exactly what they did. You can't hate on the guy for doing that, because that's exactly what Detroit needs, is a guy that is trying to make the team better, and that's exactly what he did. So
I do have one question. Dan Campbell is a noted crier, a known man crier.
Yeah.
Loves to cry. Do we think he's standing in that room on deadline day, just like trembling, the bottom lip quivering, gets the phone call from Jamal's agent? Yeah, we're out. Do you think the tears started coming?
Probably.
Jamal, I love you, man.
Probably.
See, I just don't know, because like it seemed like Montgomery was already like, it was just like almost there waiting,
Yeah,
it was
definitely. They probably had, they've got however many phones in their office. They've probably got Montgomery on line 1 and Jamal on line 2.
Like, so
Jamal says no, boom. Okay, we're in at $6 million a year.
That's got to be such a difficult decision-making group, to go through, especially with how emotional they are.
Yeah.
Like just being in that whole, like them making that decision, it's got to be so tough for those guys, because they're so attached to their guys,
And it's one of the things that makes them so special is how much they really do care. I mean, you see Dan Campbell is a guy who, what makes him such a great football coach is how much he cares about these guys.
He's a leader. He's bought in,
And these guys see it, and they play so hard for him. You see it last year. We had a bunch of dogs on the field. No matter who was on the field, we could, Monty O'Reilly. He wasn't that great last year, but he was a dog. I mean, he played hard.
He plays hard.
And I think that's what Dan Campbell does. And I can imagine what it's like sitting in that room with a guy you bought into last season, had a breakout year, talked about the Lions, talked so highly, had that interview at the end of the year,
the emotional one,
the emotional one at the end of the year, talking about quit playing with us. To not bring him back probably hurt those guys so much in the moment. But it's also nice to see them have like the power and the discipline to not make the move.
I just see Dan Campbell at a press conference in like 2 weeks, and he's got the hat up top. You can't see it if you're listening. He's got it up here like this, and he's just
Fernando Rodney style.
He's just like, Jamal, man, we just wanted to bring him back bad, but it's a businessman.
It's a businessman.
It's a businessman, and we're gonna do what we can. We're really excited about what David brings to this team, man.
Yeah, the most classic response ever.
Sweat, it's everywhere. He's been doing down-ups for the last 6 hours.
Yeah,
it's always it's always a business.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that as well. Okay, before we get into the draft, one more guy that has not been signed yet, but is still out available on the market is DJ Chark. Who, there's been a lot of talk about him coming back to the Lions. He posted on his Instagram story yesterday a highlight tape of him from this last season, his Lions highlights. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything, but maybe it does. Who knows?
Was that a short tape?
Yeah, it was just a little clip of him, just his touchdowns and stuff.
I'm a little more confused by the action of posting your highlights themselves. Like, what is it, did it have like the little huddle circle around it? You're an NFL player, man.
They know. They've seen it.
You don't need to be putting your stuff out. Like, I just envision him like, coaches, get at me. Get at me. 6'4".
Check out my tape. But yeah, DJ Chark, unsigned yet. I would assume that being that he got a one-year deal last year, he's looking for a multi-year deal, but he only played in 5 or 6 games this year, so can he get that multi-year deal? What do you think the likelihood on a percentage scale of DJ Chark returning is?
I think it's more likely now than it was at the beginning of the offseason. I think what did he visit, Carolina?
I think so, yeah.
I think he has a good chance of coming back. I think that they'll match. They might take it even up a little bit. I think maybe you get him somewhere in the realm of like 2 years, $22 million. Or maybe they go 3 with low guarantees in the third year. I think that he is certainly a player that they should at least look into bringing back, just because think about that receiving core. If you don't have to draft a wideout and you could just get that whole group back for next year,
looking fun.
But at the same time, Jameson Williams could just essentially take that role over.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am.
I'm not hurt if he doesn't come back, and then you can go get another guy in the draft. So, I think that it's about 50-50 right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty indifferent about whether or not we bring him back. If we bring him back, cool. If we don't, cool.
I got the same exact way.
Yeah.
It doesn't really it matters, but I'm indifferent about what.
I love Chark because he was fun on this team, and he had a clear bond with the group. I thought him and Amon-Ra really showed that they were like really close throughout the year, which is awesome. But also, I really do like the idea of drafting another wide receiver and adding to this young core that we don't have to pay for years to come, So I really like that idea as well, where we have a guy from the past 3 drafts that we've all, going forward.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But for now, whatever happens. I don't think there's going to be some team out there that gives him this bag that we can't, sign. I think it's going to be if some team offers him something, we probably could offer him that too. Will they? Who knows? So let's get into the draft talk, because now with the Lions, they've signed a guy at basically every positional need, other than, I would say, linebacker. Obviously, we brought back Anzalone, but we didn't bring anyone in to play that position, whereas every other spot, we either brought back the guys that were there or we added guys to the group. So it's going to be interesting to see where, with 5 top 81 picks, like, where do these guys go? So I wrote down your latest mock draft, obviously, like I did last time. So let's go through each pick. At pick 6, you had Will Anderson going at pick 6 here.
Yeah.
I'm interested. What's the thought process behind this one? Where's the world where Will Anderson falls to 6?
Look, I think that in today's like media-driven atmosphere, I think there's a very good chance that Will Anderson is available at 6 for the sole reason that you have first 4 picks are quarterbacks, right? That's the only way this happens.
Yep.
Right.
Is if Carolina goes quarterback at 1, and then Houston, and then Arizona could trade out, and then Indianapolis will take a quarterback at 4. Then you get to Seattle at 5. assuming Seattle doesn't trade for one of those top 4. You get to Seattle at 5, and there's this guy named Tyree Wilson that everybody seems to love. And I think that much like Trayvon Walker did last year, you'll see him rise because, he has a good pro day, he has a good combine, like all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, the best player on defense is waiting right there for you at 6.
Yeah, he's right
Let's
there.
not overthink this.
No.
Yep.
I think if Seattle doesn't take Will Anderson at 5, you have to take him at 6.
Oh, yeah.
1,000%.
And honestly, with the whole Jalen Carter thing, if all that wouldn't have went down, I think that there's a good chance Anderson makes it to you at 6. Now it's just up to the evaluators whether Seattle goes Anderson or Wilson or Miles Murphy at 5. I think that there's a very good chance that we could be seeing Will Anderson in a Lions jersey. I think I'm more confident now than I was at the beginning of the offseason. So.
I think so too. I'm just interested to see, we can talk about the Jalen Carter thing. You're obviously a guy that takes a lot of, research into the draft process and everything. And I've seen Jalen Carter might fall out of the top 10 of the draft now, there's talks about, I don't know if he'll be there at 18, but even if he is there at 18, do the Lions even want to bring in a guy with character problems? They don't seem like in a team that would. And obviously he showed up to his pro day seemingly not caring, I guess you could say, not taking it very seriously. What's the whole Jalen Carter situation?
That's so hard because the whole incident that happened at Georgia, very tragic, that is more of a maturity thing. It's just you go to Georgia, you're on top of the world, right? You're back-to-back national championships, and then a disaster happens. And then that is okay, other than that, we haven't heard anything bad about character problems. We know what he is as a football player. So it's that whole thing is more of coming to terms with, can we trust him from a maturity standpoint to not go and make bad decisions that get not only himself but other people in trouble. And then the whole pro day thing happened. I think that speaking from a character perspective, I think Detroit is a very good spot for somebody with character problems because you're coming into an organization that will care about you, that will love you, that will treat you like their own. You've got a head coach, a GM, an owner now, even with Sheila, who are all very invested in these players. And because of that, that is a great spot for somebody who is going through a hard time or struggling or has a history of bad decisions. This is a perfect spot for them. However, you get to the pro day thing, and I think that's the deal breaker because Dan Campbell has talked about people who love football, who eat and sleep football, who do nothing but want to play football. And Jalen Carter shows up to his pro day not giving an F. That is a horrible look for him. I bet you that is what takes him out. And then obviously if something comes out about the whole traffic incident, if it's a deal breaker, obviously you can't take him. But from a character perspective, I think that Detroit is a very good spot for people who want to develop as people. You saw it with Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams was not somebody who... Jamal Williams, I'm not talking about character. I'm just talking about personality because you saw him really come out of his shell where he's wearing the anime things. Now he's wearing the anime beanie in press conferences. Detroit allowed him to develop and be his own person.
For sure.
And I believe it would have the same impact on somebody who has character concerns, but with the whole pro day thing and him not caring or not appearing to care, gaining weight, not finishing his drills, I think that is what takes him out for the Lions.
Yeah, you got to love the process.
Yes.
It's not just about the product. If you don't love coming to practice every day and working your ass off, then we don't want you in Detroit.
You're not a Dan Campbell guy.
And you're probably not a football guy, in all honesty. You're not football guy of the week with that type of attitude.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. If you have a bunch of players who you can go out there and get the job done, but the NFL isn't for those guys.
No.
The NFL is for the hard ass workers who are gonna bully people every day. There was the talks of what Penei Sewell would do. Him and Hutch just go at it.
Yeah.
And if we bring Jalen Carter and does he just not give it? Oh, well, I don't need to be going hard. Blah blah. I'm Jalen Carter. That's
I don't
a character
think that would
problem.
fit at all.
No.
Not at all. And all of a sudden you've got Dan in his ear. And he's not going to play, and then all of a sudden it develops and develops.
Yeah.
Or, like you said, we fall in love with him and force him to work hard. And he starts working hard. He changes his ways. But it's too difficult to take a chance with the 6th overall pick.
Yeah,
I honestly do think that even if he's there at 18, I really think the Lions pass. I just feel like it seems like a situation that the Lions are willing to just stay away from at this point. So at 18th overall pick in your mock draft, you had the same thing that you did in the last one that we talked about. And that was Osiris Torrance. interior offensive lineman from Florida going here. Even with the Graham Glasgow signing, I agree that this is still a need. Graham Glasgow's a 1-year guy, basically. It's still need to add to this group going forward. So what's the thought process behind this one?
Yeah, I'll make this one quick. I think that it's all about insurance. I think that you got to have insurance in the interior offensive line. I think that when you look at Glasgow being on a 1-year deal and Vaitai being very close to the end of his run as a Lion, I don't envision him ever resigning. It's good to have that insurance and to get the best offensive lineman outside of the 2 tackles and Skoronski and Paris Johnson, although I do think the Lions could be in on Skoronski if he's available, given his versatility to play guard or tackle. I just think getting insurance up front is huge, especially when you want to build your team through the run game and the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with the same exact thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, question I do have here, though, is obviously I'm very invested on Lions Twitter. I love hearing the talk about what fans are talking about and what, the rumors are. So a guy that, there was that talk at the beginning of the combine process where Dan Campbell said there was 4 guys that had the it factor or whatever. And then they gave off the list of guys that have already, worked out for them and they've spoken to. A heavy rumor that one of those it factor guys is Quentin Johnston, wide receiver of TCU. Now, obviously that, the Lions are in a weird spot where it's like, what do we take here? Where's a world where, the Lions decide we want to keep adding to this elite offense and we draft Quentin Johnson in the first round? Or a wide receiver. It doesn't have to be him, but
it could very well be. I mean, if you ask Ben Johnson, I think that the answer is either at 6 or 18. I could see a world where maybe they trade out of 6 and you get into that 10 to 12 range, and maybe that is where you could pull the trigger on a wide receiver. I think it's too early at 6, and he's not going to be there at 18.
Yeah.
And maybe if you trade out and find a sweet spot right in the middle, I think the only way that happens, though, is if Shark doesn't come back. And if Shark doesn't come back, then you can kind of justify it a little bit. I think that that's certainly a possibility. I don't think there's any option that's off the board here.
Yeah.
I also don't think quarterback's off the board.
Mm-hmm. It would be awesome to get another big-bodied receiver like Quentin Johnson.
Yeah,
it would be
good Shark replacement, same size. He's quick for his size.
Go up and get it type of guy. Mm-hmm. He's a dog.
So another one, we bring in David Montgomery, obviously. However, we talked about this before the draft, how we believe DeAndre Swift could be in his last year as a Lion or maybe even traded before.
Yep.
Is Bijan Robinson still in play for being drafted at pick 18, or maybe they draft another guy with one of our second round picks?
I think that it's not off the board. I think Bijan is going to go a lot earlier than people think.
Yeah.
I think either somebody's going to trade up to get him, or I think the latest maybe Philly takes him at 10.
Mm-hmm. Really? You think he's going that early?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I think Philly could take him at 10. That might be the earliest he could go, but he's just such a good athlete. He's just sweet. You watch him play, he's awesome. Mm-hmm. And if he's there at 18, I'm sprinting to the car with that card. I'm sprinting it to the commish. It'd be hard to justify having Swift and Montgomery and now Bijan, but I think Swift could get you a halfway decent return if you want to trade him, but obviously you'd have to trade him first or else you got no leverage.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. I think if you want to make that move, then go crazy, but I do think it's realistic. I just don't think it's as possible as it is right now.
So if you're saying if he's there at 18, you take him.
Oh yeah,
no matter what.
I wouldn't go. I would stop short of no matter what. I think that you'd have to move Swift. But maybe Swift is part of a deal that you make with another team to trade up to get him.
Oh, that's not maybe you trade him to Philly.
Trade him to Philly for 10. Here, you take your experienced running back. We want the young gun. You take the old bull. We want the young cat.
Nice.
That would definitely be interesting. And then the last thing, you already brought it up here. Where the Lions now have the pick at 6 is up in the air. I really do think it is. I think it's going to be edge, maybe Christian Gonzalez, maybe, but. What is the world where the quarterback gets taken? It's kind of gone under the radar now these past couple of weeks with all these signings. But let's say Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson both go before, and one of these 4 quarterbacks is there. What is the actual chances that we decide maybe that is our biggest need and we draft one?
Yeah, it's on the table. It's on the table, and I think that the fact that the Lions haven't went out and got a veteran backup yet tells you everything you need to know. Mm-hmm. Because they're not going to have. In an ideal world, you wouldn't have some 4th, 5th, 6th round quarterback backing up Jared Goff.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So if you wanted to go late round quarterback, maybe you bring in a guy like a Teddy Bridgewater or somebody like that where you could maybe stash the late round guy on the practice squad for a year. But that hasn't happened yet. And I think that maybe you could see that with Nate Sudfeld where they just bring him back. But I think there is a good chance that the Lions are seeing one of these young guys, whether it be Richardson or Young, or I think Stroud is right now the favorite to go number one.
That's
what I've been
which
seeing.
is kind of crazy, but
I think so too.
I think we can get into that later. But I think that if a guy like Anthony Richardson is just sitting there at 6, how do you not? With a 5th-year option, how do you not take a chance on him?
You do.
I think you have to,
especially with Goff starting. I mean, it's not like if it doesn't work out, that's okay. We still have Jared Goff, and he is just so polarizing as a prospect.
Yeah. And I think that the other thing about Richardson too that kind of tends to slip through the cracks is this dude can fly, so you can get him in the offense in year 1 as like a read option wildcat type quarterback where he's lined up in the shotgun making all these reads just to decide whether he's going to hand it off or pull it. But you can give him that exposure to come into games, to see defenses, to see how they line up and make reads and adjustments and changes to the offense. It's just like, how can you not?
Yeah, maybe you stick him in there and you treat him almost like the Saints treat Taysom Hill.
Yes.
A very specialty guy. You don't know what play we're going to throw at you, and Anthony Richardson's in the backfield.
Well, yeah, and then when teams start to adjust to the run, when he's played in only read option plays for the first 8 weeks, then you give the fans what they want.
Yeah.
Play action, Jameson
over the top.
Williams.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
Especially with Jared Goff, needing a new contract here coming up. It's still an interesting world. I honestly don't think Will Levis will be drafted with this 6th pick. I think they would just decide to not take him. But like you said, if Anthony Richardson is there, if there's a guy I trust to develop him, it's Ben Johnson. So, we'll see what happens there. But I'm not off the board on it. I know a lot of Lions fans are really, one way or the other on this. They're going to hate the Lions if they draft a quarterback. It's whatever. I'm on board for whatever they do at those picks. So,
yes. Yeah, I mean, there's no option off the table at this point.
Yeah, I think edge is the most likely option. With
agree.
Wilson or Anderson, I think if one of those two are there, I think it's almost a lock that one of them gets picked. But you never know. We'll see. Then with the other both 2nd round picks and the 3rd, we'll go through quickly.
Yep.
All defensive players, obviously a much need. We have linebacker Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. Definitely will be a linebacker drafted with one of these first 5 picks. I would be shocked if not. With their other 2nd round pick at 55, I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Yeah. I don't know if you know how to pronounce his name.
Siaki Ika, I believe is how you say it.
But defensive tackle out of Baylor, I think that is one of the positions that, maybe we could draft at a higher pick as well, just because we could add more to that group. And then at pick 81, you have Julius Brent, defensive back out of Kansas State going there. So just quickly, if you have any likes about those guys.
I like Simpson because he's athletic. I think that Ika is a guy who can really help anchor against the run. Which should be a good pairing to have with Aleem McNeil as another guy who maybe in run packages could just be studs against the run. And then Brents is a guy who's very interesting to me, and I need to keep looking into him. But when you look at his combine numbers, you go, oh my God, 41-inch vertical. Like, I think he was 11.5 in the broad jump. It's just like, this dude is an absurd athlete who just needs to develop a little bit more. And I think that this would be a good spot for him just because he's I believe he's 6'2", super long. He could play like the nickel position that Aaron Glenn loves, that big nickel, kind of like what I believe Will Harris did, and Deshaun Elliott did a little bit of it, and Kirby Joseph as well. Just fly around, hit people, and then when the ball comes your way, pick it off. So I like him a lot.
Is there anything else Lions related that you'd want to get off your chest, or any sleeper things that you think could happen? Just anything at all really that you would like to talk about that have gone down? Really,
the only impending thing is whatever's going to happen with Shark. I think that he very well could be coming back to the Lions. But other than that, it's just about getting to know some of these guys and figuring out how the Lions plan to use a guy like David Montgomery. What are they going to do at wide receiver? And, of course, the all-knowing question, who is going to be the backup quarterback? I think it's exciting. I think it's a really exciting time to be a Lions fan just because they could go just about any way with the draft.
Yeah.
You got really every position is still kind of a position of need. It's like you could pick whoever you want. You could sign whoever you want. It's like you're going to look at it and be like, okay, I see how this guy fits. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how the draft goes down. Obviously, we still have quite some time up until then, so some moves could be made. Who knows? Maybe the Lions orchestrate some trades up until that point. You never know with Brad Holmes what he's cooking up in the lab. Quickly, Aaron Rodgers' situation to New York Jets. I would love to hear what you think about that. Aaron Rodgers has really screwed over the Green Bay Packers as far as from a leverage standpoint.
He's an interesting guy.
They want a Matt Stafford type package, but it's sounding that they're not even going to get a first round pick for Aaron Rodgers in a potential trade. So what do you think of that about that whole ordeal?
I just think it's funny how time is repeating itself with the whole Brett Favre to the Jets, and now it's Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, and he made this big old event out of it on Pat McAfee's show, which is good for Pat McAfee. I mean, he got crazy ratings.
Yeah, he had the highest viewed show of his whole time. Yeah.
But I still just think that he's past his prime. Like, he could go to New York and have a really good year, but like also the Jets aren't really losing out on if he doesn't come. I think he will, but I just think it would be really funny if we get to day one of training camp and Aaron Rodgers is still on the Packers and he still is owed $50 million or whatever. I just think that would be so fun.
It'd be awesome.
It would be awesome.
I could see them holding out on it too. I mean, the Packers are in a really bad situation.
They are in a tough spot right now
because they, a while back you could have gotten all this, but now that he openly said I'm going to the New York Jets when you are on the Green Bay Packers still, it doesn't really help out the Green Bay Packers very much.
Well, yeah, because no other team is going to trade for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
why would any other team want to trade for him? Yeah, so
there's no way you get what you want in return for that.
We'll see if Zach Wilson ends up on the Green Bay Packers next year.
That would be objectively pretty
The Lions are the favorite to win the NFC North officially now. So
As they should be.
Yeah,
yes,
I agree. So we'll see what happens. Maybe DeAndre Swift, trade talks amp up, but I do think a Swift-Montgomery backfield is kind of what this team is envisioning for next year.
Absolutely.
So we'll see with that. But yeah, that's basically it. We got anything else that we want to talk about? Or
nope, I think that's it.
All right, thanks for coming on again, Christian. We will most likely have you on again around draft time. Excited for that. Check out, you can plug your stuff again that people go check out.
At Booher on Twitter, and then all my articles are at, I'm going to butcher the link here, but I think it's si.com/Lions. You can find all my stuff there.
It'll all be in the description for anybody listening. Everything's in the description.
si.com/NFL/Lions.
We plug you. We plug you.
Very easy.
I appreciate that.
Go check out all of his mock drafts and all the articles talking about the Lions because it is a perfect time of year to get involved with that.
Yes, sir.
And go green today. Go Spartans.
Yeah.
If they lose when you're listening to this, it's going to be a sad time for me, but it's whatever. Bye.
Peace.